Today we're going to talk about the way to build trust. The way to build trust. In a moment, you'll catch how important all of this is, especially in our time, the time in which we live, the culture in which we live. How many of you would say, trust is a little bit hard to build sometimes with people and with news media outlets and everything else? Anybody with me? I got a text this week from a furniture company. We ordered furniture in July, and they said the furniture is here. Finally, now in October, you can just pay this link right here, and then we'll deliver it. And I'm thinking, I don't want to click a link and put money in on a text. I don't trust it. Anybody would have been like me, like, I don't trust this. Someone's trying to scam me once again. So I had to call the furniture store and ask, because they even used the wrong name. I'm not Noel. My name is not Noel. They're like, hey, Noel, it's ready. I'm like, I'm not Noel. And you want my money? Who are you? And anyways, so it was legit. So anyway, we're going to finally get 2 chairs for our front room. First time in 18 years. They're going to be in there, though. I'm pretty excited. They're on their way. But when I was a kid, we used to use a term. We used to say something, and then we would use a word, and it completely nullified whatever we just said, as long as we said this word. The word was psych. Anybody? Come on, back to the 80s, 70s, and 90s and all that. Psych. If you use the word psych, it doesn't matter what you just said in front of it. Psych means everything's off the table. Or you could say whatever you want and then go, I was crossing my fingers. My fingers are crossed. Anybody ever did the finger cross thing? Or it wasn't legit unless you pinky swore. If you didn't pinky swear, it didn't matter what I just said. Pinky swears make it count. As funny as all of that is, that's exactly what we're going to be dealing with today in the particular passage that Jesus is getting into. He was just dealing with versions of that in his culture at his time, except they all had a religious veneer over them, which makes them even worse. And so, anyways, we do, a couple questions that I think when we talk about the kingdom and Jesus is king as he's coming with the way. This is the way of my kingdom. In my kingdom, people are honest. They just mean what they say. As we talk about that, let me get you to dream a little bit with me. Can you imagine what it would be like to live in a culture or a society where people only spoke with honesty? Period. No intent to deceive, twist. You could trust what was said, that was what their heart intended. Can you imagine living in a culture like that? How cool would that be? And yet, that's what's coming. Like, oh, I can't wait for that day. Can you imagine around the voting era, season, time, like we're about to come into, could you imagine that every proposition commercial that came on TV was actually only telling you the truth about what the proposition was actually for and actually about? Can you imagine how cool it would be to trust that they actually meant and it was written exactly the way they're presenting their proposition to you? How cool would that be? Where every political speech or every political debate didn't have to be fact-checked at the end of it. And then you'd have to fact-check the fact-checkers to make sure that their fact-checking was legitimately a real fact-check and not another spin on the spin that was just spun. How cool would that be? Can you imagine a time when every contract that was written between people was on one page and it was with words you could understand? Oh, come on now. This is what we're talking about when Jesus says, listen, my kingdom is different than the way of this world and this culture in all of these factors. I'm a God who speaks with honesty. When I make a promise, I mean it. What I say is available is available. I can be trusted, and therefore my people can be people who can be trusted. Can you imagine that? And that's what he invites us into, this kind of a life. And it's that kind of a life that is salt, that is light in their culture. As we've been saying all through this series, just being a follower of Jesus, a true disciple it's enough. You are salt, you are light, you will be an influence, you will make an impact, you will change the atmosphere, and you will definitely demonstrate who I am in a world that doesn't understand who I am. So a couple of simple quotes we've been using as we've gone through this. I'm going to bring it back up. I didn't do it last week, but I will this week. Just so what are we talking about? When we say disciple, what does it mean? There's lots of quotes out there, lots of ways of looking at it. This one I liked. It says, disciples are those who, seriously intending to become like Jesus from the inside out. We're not talking about outside behavior. Just do this, talk this way, act this way, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We're talking about a transformation from the inside out. That means from our heart motivation, the why behind why I do what I do. Disciples are those who seriously intending to become like Jesus from the inside out, systematically and progressively rearrange their affairs to that end under the guidance of the Word of God and the Holy Spirit. They're people who recognize Jesus is my King. I've invited him to reign in my heart and to transform me into him. And to that end, I'm willing to rearrange the parts, the issues that don't line up. So discipleship is just simply this, a process of becoming who Jesus would be if he were you. Becoming who Jesus would be if he were you. And so on the topic of building trust, if Jesus were me, how would he say what he says? How would he build trust with those around him? So Matthew chapter 5, in verse 33, we get into another statement where Jesus directly confronts the cultural belief, what is being said, what's accepted, and says, but let me tell you a better way. Let me show you my way. And so here's what he says. He says, again, you've heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you've sworn. But I say to you, do not even take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it's the throne of God, or the earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil, or comes from the evil one. Yes or no. So let me give you a little bit of background. 2 simple points that are going to come out. We're just going to talk about people who don't have any intent to deceive. No intent to deceive. And secondly, we're going to talk about meaning what you say. Jesus is inviting us. He's saying, let me be king of your integrity. Let me be king of the integrity, your character, your inner man, your inner woman. Let me be king here. Be a person who can be trusted. So let's talk about no intent to deceive. Let me give you a little bit of background. Again, he says all this stuff about not taking an oath. You've heard that it was said. What is he referring to? Well, it's a lot of Old Testament law, a lot in Deuteronomy and other passages where it's talking about mean what you say. Ultimately, as we're creating a foundation, we're creating a nation here, a nation's being birthed. How are you to operate? How are you to look like me in this way? Mean what you say. And it talks about if you do take an oath, then make sure you mean it. If you make an oath to the Lord, make sure you keep it. In one of the 10 commandments is don't take the Lord's name in vain. A part of that, probably the highest part of that is actually when I take an oath in God's name, that I don't take it in vain, that I mean what I say. Oath keeping. So they were built in the Old Testament. There's this understanding of as an Israelite, as a good Israelite, as a man or a woman who is honoring God with my oaths, I'm going to mean what I say. And if I take an oath, I'm going to keep that oath. Well, all these years later, now, a couple thousand years later, Jesus on the scene, and in this conversation, Jesus is saying, or what had taken place was the Pharisees, or the religious leaders of the time, had said, hey, listen, let's come up with a system. It's a system that you're kind of familiar with. A system that says this: which oaths do we actually have to keep? If I make an oath, maybe I make an oath by Jerusalem, but I don't say by the temple in Jerusalem. Which oath is binding? And they actually came up with a very long and elaborate system of deciding which oaths were binding and which oaths were not binding. And it had everything to do with the types of words you used or the types of words you didn't use. And they used oaths as a way of strengthening the confidence in what they're saying without actually having to fulfill it. Does that sound familiar? It was a way of spinning the truth in a way where if I wanted to deceive and get out of this oath, I could. Whether it was business deals I was making, whether it was deals on the side, whether all kinds of deals, agreements, oaths. Later on in chapter 23 of Matthew, Jesus actually speaks to some of the things they actually say. You say, hey, this by the gold on the altar, but not necessarily by the temple and the this. He's like, well, what makes one holy over the other? Is it the place where God rests that makes it? He's like, just don't get into oaths. I'm teaching you another way. Don't intend to deceive. Don't try to find a way to share things or say things in a way that you could get out of your promise. Instead, how about this? I'll tell you what. How about we just never intend to deceive people for our gain? How about that being a better way? It's a lot of, I mentioned it before, it's a lot of what we find in contract writing. I was going to ask one of you who are lawyers in the church to bring me one of your law books on contract writing. I just wanted to hold it up here and have it in front of you all, just to say, this is only one book of maybe like 200 books on how to write a contract. But why are contracts so complicated? Because for so long, everybody who has written contracts have tried to get out of the contracts that they've written. And so they've tried to find loopholes in the contract. So if a contract is written this way, it means I could get away with doing this instead. And so then laws had to be created about those ways, those loopholes. And then they said, so say it this way then. So if I say it this way, then it's now binding. Well, it's only binding until this new law precedent here in this case over here said that it is no longer binding. So now we've got to write a contract in this way. And that's why you have an 8-page contract that says I want to get takeout from DoorDash. Is it binding or not? Well, it depends. Depends on what? There's so many examples in just pop culture of people saying things that weren't honest, spinning words in a way that until they were caught or whatever else, they just weren't telling the truth. Very public things. Sports fans out there, football fans in particular. I don't know if any of you have forgotten about Spygate, but some of you remember about Spygate when the Patriots were caught filming illegally other teams' practices. Of course, they denied it. They tried to pretend they weren't doing it until finally it was official. Then there was Deflate Gate. Sorry, Patriot fans, you're going to get a little extra. Tom Brady had no idea that the footballs that he was using in the Super Bowl were mildly deflated, so he had a better grip on them after they were already pre-approved at the proper inflation rate. Whoever possibly deflated his balls, he had no idea that it was, anyway, the Patriots had no idea it happened. They just fired the guy who did it, and he took all the blame. And then eventually there was some suspensions, but they never admitted it. Athletes lying about taking performance-enhancing drugs. How many of you can remember one athlete in particular getting on the screen and telling everybody, I promise you, I give you my word, I did not take these drugs, I did not this and that. Only later, because he was totally caught, had to go back and say, I'm sorry to all the people that backed me up because I did lie, I did take the drugs, I did get the MVP and I shouldn't have. That guy from the Dodgers should have had it instead. There's no reason why I chose that guy. None of you will forget the Astros. Still to this day, I love the sign, by the way, that he has holding up there. I had a really good sign, but the Astros stole it. I love that. This is just a great picture, but the Astros who got caught stealing signs with cameras, video, and communicating those signs to their players, they've still never publicly admitted that. They just fired everybody involved, of course, as far as the head ones, but they've never admitted it. So now they get crud everywhere they go, into every ballpark that they enter, because there's a lot of jaded fans out there about the Astros. We've had presidents lying under oath. And lately and recently, and in many cases throughout the years, we've had pastors, very famous pastors, who are exposed for a secret life. No wonder it's hard to trust. Anybody? No wonder. But can we just admit that honesty is a better way? Like meaning what you say and not intending to deceive people, not living secret lives and not hiding stuff from your spouse. Like it's actually a better way. Being honest, living a life of integrity. So why then? Why do we mislead? Why do we lie about things? Why does it happen that way? Why are the Pharisees developing all of these special ways to get around having to keep their word? There's a lot of reasons, and I was going to try to think of them all, but it doesn't matter. The question is for each one of them, why do I lie? Why would I intend to deceive somebody? I remember when I was, I think, about 14 years old. My parents were gone. My sister and my cousin were at the house. They were the older siblings. They were responsible for getting us to church and all of that. I'm saying that out loud so they all understand I'm talking about them. We had quite the Saturday night. We had a Saturday night at the house. My parents were gone. Don't worry, it wasn't like a rager, but we had a lot of fun. We were up very late at night, and we made a massive mess. We had this giant chemical warfare where every kind of aerosol spray that we could possibly have was sprayed at each other and water, and it was a lot of fun, but we were up really, really late, and the house was a mess, and we didn't miss church in the morning. And so I got a call from my grandfather. My grandpa, some of you knew him. God bless him. He was a man who lived this integrity in every way, and just great. But he called, and they made me answer the phone. Of course, they didn't want to answer the phone. I had to answer the phone. So I answered the phone, and it's my grandpa on the other line saying, "Hey, I didn't see you at church today. Where were you?" And I'm thinking I should just tell him what happened. And then I could see my sister and my cousin are just like, "Don't tell him, don't tell him, don't tell him what happened." And I'm thinking, "Oh man, what am I gonna do?" And so I felt like I was in a pickle. And if I tell, then we're all gonna get in trouble, and they're gonna get in trouble, and they don't want. Then I'm gonna let them down. They'll be disappointed that I told the truth, and then, oh man, I don't want to deal with disappointing them. I was in this conundrum, and I fully lied, just flat out lied, just threw out the lie. I don't even remember what I said. Something like, "Oh, you must have missed us, a wrong service," and da. But the truth got found out. I got found out. So then my mom just throws on the mom guilt trip of all guilt trips. She tells me, "Your grandfather, when he found out that you lied, he started crying. He said, 'Not my Ryan, not my Ryan.'" And I died 1,000 deaths that day. I'll never forget it. And he never once mentioned it, by the way. He never brought it up, but I died. Why do we lie? Sometimes it's because we don't want to not do something we're doing. Sometimes it's because we don't want to disappoint people. Sometimes it's because we're embarrassed. Sometimes we're ashamed. There's a lot of reasons Sometimes it's because we're greedy and we're trying to get stuff. There could be a lot of reasons for them, but none of them represent the heart of our God. I know in some marriages, I've heard this more than once, so I just want to say, don't hide things from each other. You know, if it's a marriage and husbands, you don't want your wives having access to your technology, there should be nothing on your technology that your wife should be afraid of. And vice versa. Wives trying to hide any conversations you're having with other people behind your husband's back. There should be nothing about your life like that you have to hide. And the degree to which you live like that is the degree to which you limit the ability of trust to grow between you, which dramatically affects then the intimacy of your marriage or your relationships. Anything works like that. Why is trust so important? Because trust is the foundation of every relationship. Trust is the foundation. Why does it matter so much to God? Because people are everything to him. Relationship with us and our relationships with each other is everything to God and to his kingdom. That's how love flows. That's how life gets good. And so when the foundations are foundations of dishonesty as a way, as long as I can twist the words to fit, I didn't actually say, honestly, I'm on the phone with my grandpa and I'm playing the game. I'm like, well, what service did you go to? Oh, you went to first service. Oh, well, we typically go to second service. Now, I didn't say I went to second service. I was given the impression that I could have been at second service and he missed me. But I'll play the game. I'll twist it as long as I can. I didn't actually lie. No, I totally intended to deceive him to get out of the consequence of being caught. Are you with me? We know these games. And God knows these games. And he just says, for my people, let me be king in your integrity. And let me help you live this kind of life because it will be better. Relationships will be better for you. Life will be better for you, healthier for you. Trust is the foundation. The goal of relationship building is building trust between people. Trust brings security to a relationship. In fact, it can be said that the journey of discipleship, the journey that we're on, that we've started with Jesus, is a journey of learning to trust God more. I've learned to trust you here. He's saying, now let me teach you to trust me here. And now you can trust me here. And we have progressively learning to trust God more and more. I have an illustration that I need a friend to come help me with. Adam, would you come help me with this illustration? So we've got this table here, and we've got some things that we want to use to illustrate just the power of all of this, the significance of this conversation. So Adam and I met about 17 years ago. And it was at a birthday party for his brother, who happened to be my neighbor. We had just started the church. It was very new. Adam and I had never met each other before. But we were invited to the birthday party. And because of that birthday party and over time, we began to build some trust. Conversations led to one conversation, led to coffee. Eventually, we asked him to participate in, if you didn't know this, Adam is a fantastic musician. And at the time I met him, he was in this big old punk band, and it was really, really fun. And everybody knew about his punk rock stuff that I didn't know anything about, and I was learning about it. But over time, we started this friendship. And little by little, we started spending time together. We started doing a little bit of ministry here and there. And over the years, we started hanging out. We would eventually, I invited him to come and be the worship leader at our church. And he said yes to that. In fact, it didn't come without a little bit of risk on their part. I said, hey, listen, I got 6 months I can pay you. I have nothing else, but you have to move here. Because he was all the way out in Temecula. I said, I don't know what else to tell you. You're the one I'm hoping says yes to this job, but that's just as much money as I got. After that, the well could be dry. So you're taking the risk. And from there, it was it worked, and it came, and we're part, and have been for all these years. We've been on mission trips together. We've been to Greece. We've been to the Philippines together. We've been to Israel together. He's led worship at several retreats. Sometimes we're asked to come to retreats and do men's retreats together, and just a lot of time over the years. And our relationship continues to grow to this day. It's about 17 years of relationship and time. But this relationship was built on something. It was built on trust. And what happens is all of our relationships have to be built on trust. But when trust gets rocked, you feel it in a relationship. When you're dishonest about something, or when you handle a situation, and I'm not sure what did he mean by that? And when he said he has 6 months of salary, does he really have 6 months? He had to trust, but that's the thing about trust. No relationship can survive, or a relationship is severely challenged when matters of trust come into play. Lying, hiding things from each other. Then there comes those things in life, though, that are just the major, major violations. And in a relationship, when trust is violated, it's not like the past didn't happen. It's not like we didn't go to the Philippines and have an amazing time together. And it's not like we didn't honor that 6 months of your salary and God provided and we kept going. It happened. And it wasn't like you're not a fantastic worship leader that I could trust in any setting to bring us into the presence of God. You still be invited. But once this happens, once trust is violated at such a deep level, relationship comes crumbling down. You can't just start rebuilding a relationship without trust. Trust has to be restored. And it might take some time. It will take some time. It might take some intention. But it will take both a willingness to heal, a willingness to forgive, a willingness to lean back in, and a slow rebuild. There'll be some new stories that you begin to build again. You've got to restore the relationship little by little. The memories are there. They're still there. But this relationship has to be rebuilt. It is way easier to destroy trust than it is to build it. Something that you can build in 20 years, it might take you 5 years, 6 years, a long time to build, can be destroyed in a moment. The intention of our God is that we would be able to be the kind of people that can be trusted. And as people who are trusted, because of the integrity of our words, of our life, people can trust what we have to say about God. How hard is it to represent God? I mean, how hard is it even to go back in some of those pictures and like, I'm going to trust the next politician that has something to say. Like, there's no spin to this. I'm going to trust the next whomever that says Aaron Judge is having a career year. I mean, he's fantastic. What an awesome baseball player. But how many of you haven't had that little bit of tinge inside going, I wonder if he's using performance-enhancing drugs. I just wonder. And he's not. I don't believe he is. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying what happens is once you get hurt or jaded, the trust level gets broken. It's like, do I trust again? How do I really feel about those things? And so he says, don't make any oaths. Don't play that game. Don't ever intend to deceive people. And this is not legalistic. I'm saying this, I feel like I always have to say, everything that Jesus is saying, the opposite of legalism is what he's saying. He's saying it's all about the heart. Don't intend to deceive from your heart. You might say something and realize later on you didn't know that you can't do that. It's not like, oh crap, I'm stuck. You talk to them about it. Hey, I intended to do this. I had this, I was gonna buy this, and then this happened and it broke, so let's work it out. We're gonna get it done. It's not like, oh no. It's in your heart. Don't intend to deceive. Don't lead someone down a road and use an oath to back it up. I swear, I promise on my mother's grave, on my grandmother's favorite china, that I mean what I'm about to say. You don't need that. Just don't intend to deceive. And secondly, mean what you say. So he says, hey, listen, don't make an oath at all. And then in verse 37, he just says, let me boil it down. Here's the point. Mean what you say. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more that you have to add to that says that your words, there's reasons why you can't be trusted. Every other flowery addition you need to make to your case for someone to believe you means that what you say, there's a reason for them not to have to believe you. How about living lives where it's simply yes or no? The weight of your words should rest on the strength of your character, not how many oaths or promises you can make to back up what you just said. James 5 says the same words. Verse 12, but above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. I wanted to do this illustration often. Well, it's been a little bit, but oftentimes I'll have something I want to give away. And so I was gonna say, hey, I've got a gift card for the first person that gets up here and does something, and was gonna let some of you come on up here and then say, just kidding, and go back to your seat, and then say, oh wait, no, I'm just kidding, I really have it, and then come on up, and then, no, I'm just kidding. And then watch the numbers dwindle from 6 of you willing to do it to 2 of you to one person going, I don't know, I'm setting myself up here. But I couldn't even do that because I want you to know that if I ever invite you up here on the stage for any particular reason, I've got a good prize. I just want you to always trust that. I don't want to mess it up now. So I couldn't even use the analogy. But are you a person that means what you say? Can your spouse, your family, your friends trust you when you've said something? Can they trust what you've said? Think about this for a moment, parents, and I don't mean this in a condemning way. I just mean to be this kind of parent. Raising your kids, we're teaching them, always teaching them. A lot of times I'll hear parents say, if you do this, then you're going to get this. I hear it all the time in Target. I hear it at Starbucks all the time. A kid's a little bit misbehaving. Parent throws a little threat out there. If you do this, if you don't put that back, then this is what's going to happen to you. And they give them a consequence right on out there. And the kid just does it anyways, and the consequence never comes. And then they say it again, and the consequence never comes. And the kids grow up understanding mom, dad does not mean what they say. And all that does is means they are learning to play the game. What's the game? How far does this go? Because you do have a breaking point, mom, and you do have a breaking point, dad. I don't know what it is. Either it's they're going to get what they want, or this is going to get to a fever pitch that nobody wants, right? Where there's a little bit of I just lost it with you, and the kids just push until that point. Or they learn, hey, mom means this, dad means this. When they say what they mean what they say. I'm going to take you to so-and-so. Later on today. Well, mom's tired, dad's tired. I got this game now. Yeah, you don't really need to go do that. Forget about it. Oh, you just crushed their heart. Do you mean what you say as a mom, as a dad? I'm going to pick you up at this time. And well, I'll be there in 30 more minutes. My program isn't done yet. In the workplace, a boss, maybe a manager, Hey, you're going to get a raise when such and such. Hey, just stay here with the company a little bit longer. You're going to get a promotion. A promotion is coming. Don't worry, it's going to come eventually. Or how about this? I can't come in today. I'm not feeling the best. Could be COVID. I don't know. I don't want to take a chance. Or how about this? In school. Oh, don't worry, guys. I'll take care of my part of the project. Oh, I'll have all that ready to go in plenty of time. Or I don't know what happened to my homework. I had it. I did it. I put it somewhere. Now I can't find it. Oh, I can't find my homework. Or you college students. Oh yeah, the reading for today? The chapters I was supposed to read? Yeah, I did the reading. Yeah, I'm up to speed. All of this stuff erodes trust. If we were just people who would mean what we say and just be honest and not try to deceive, trust would grow a lot better. And certainly when we represent God in the workplace or in our homes or to our children, they would hear a clear ability to trust what we have to say about him. All of that stuff gets eroded when we can't be trusted. Amen? So what do you do if you've really blown it and you destroyed trust in a relationship? Listen, a lot of us have been there. We've been there. It's not like things can't be rebuilt, but they just won't be rebuilt quickly. As long as you understand that, first take responsibility for what you've said or done to erode the trust. That's the beginning point. It's always starting with you. Like, just take responsibility. Yeah, I lied, Grandpa. I'm sorry. Yeah, I lied, honey. I've been hiding that, and I hoped you didn't find it. But yeah, I need to stop that conversation. Oh, yeah. It starts with taking responsibility rather than casting blame. Well, it's your fault that I did this other thing. It's your fault that I'm hiding something. It's my sister and cousin's fault that I lied to my grandfather because they pressured me across the phone. No, I broke trust, and I'm sorry. Start with the Lord, then admit it to the person. David always started with the Lord first. Against you, Lord, I've sinned. I misrepresented you. And then the person. But realize trust takes a longer time to rebuild. Understand that trust can be destroyed faster than it can be built. Understand that persistent or consistent and patient process is needed, especially meaning it won't happen quickly. If you violated trust majorly, it won't happen quickly. If you lied to your parents and you said you were somewhere and you were literally somewhere else doing something else you shouldn't be doing and they catch you, don't expect that next weekend, because you said I'm sorry, they're going to believe you're where you are when you say you're where you are somewhere. It doesn't work like that. It's going to take time, consistency, and persistence over time to rebuild that, especially in tight family marriages, especially important ones. But you've also got to remember that you've introduced an ingredient called pain. And that ingredient called pain doesn't just instantly go away. Especially if that pain is tied to a past trauma in their lives, where dad lied, or mom lied, or my ex-husband lied. And now here you are, reliving that, tearing that wound off. All of a sudden, yikes, you've introduced pain. That's why it's not a better way. Are you with me? Jesus' way is better. That we just don't intend to deceive and we mean what we say. So trust can be built and strengthened. Here's the good news. God is not like us. God's not like us. He's good only always. His very nature and character is truth. and it's love. That's who he is. And our challenge is to trust because we've been hurt by others, are met with a God who says, I love you. And you go, well, how do I know that you do? A God who says, I have this intention for your life. I've got this for your destiny. And you go, how do I know that you do? And we can always go back to the cross. He said, listen, I want to give you a visual of how much I love you, of how much I care about you. I'm willing to go to the cross for you. I'm willing to die for you. I'm willing to live for you. I'm willing to come after you with everything I've got. I'm not like a man, a woman. I don't lie. I can't lie. I can be trusted. And so what he does is invites you to build the table with him. The cross helps us see that the table is possible. You can have a relationship with God. He said, listen, I'm not embarrassed about you. I'm not turned off by you. I came for you. In your mess, in your everything, I came for you so that you and I could walk together. Let's build this temple together. And so we come and we remember, Jesus, you've made this possible. And we simply start with, help me trust you. Would you come in, be my king, be my Lord of my life? I want a relationship with you. And then you slowly start to build. You get to know who he is all the more. You get to journey through some things in life with him. He gets to talk to you about the hard times. You get to go through some challenges together and realize in all of it, when he said, I'm going to be with you no matter what, I will never leave you nor forsake you, that he meant it. And it starts to build. The key to trusting people again starts right here. Because people are not perfect. And if you are unable to trust them because of past hurt, the way forward is to grab onto God and say, Lord, I need you to help me trust again. I don't have the capacity to do this on my own. I need your help. And you'll grow in your trust of God. You'll grow to believe that even if somebody hurts me, that will not be the end of me. Therefore, I can trust. I can begin to experience healthy relationship with another human being again. Not because they're perfect, because if they disappoint me, we have someone we can go to that will help us forward. God's got me. I fall back on him. He can restore me, heal me, help me forward so we can actually have a relationship. Would you stand with me? Four simple questions as we go into this opportunity to just respond to the Lord this morning. First is this: where are you hiding this morning? Where are you hiding? The second is, where do you need to rebuild trust with somebody? Meaning, if you've been the one who's violated trust, where do you need to rebuild it? It starts by not blaming. It starts by leaning back in. Own it. Start there. Start there. And where do you struggle with saying what you mean? Like, yeah, I don't always mean what I say. Sometimes I twist it a little bit. Sometimes I try to not have to take responsibility for things at work or school or with my parents. And lastly, this: will you invite Jesus to be king of your integrity? That's the invite. And with the invite, it's not just a high bar. It's help. It's the power of God living in you to help you with that bar. He said, this is who I am. Let's agree together. This is right. Make me king. And I can help you live a life of integrity.